everyone, welcome to Boarding School with Brandy. I'm Brandy, and today I'm going to teach you one of my current favorite games, London, from Martin Wallace. This is a 2 to 4 player game where players become architects in London, rebuilding after the Great Fire, trying to accumulate the most prestige to make sure that history remembers you. Before we set up, I want to take a look at some of the cards that we have. We have 2 different decks. The smaller deck is going to be made up of city cards. They look like this with a blue back, and they're just regular sized cards. Let's look at the different components of the cards a little more close up, shall we? This is the name of the card here. We've got 3 different decks, A, B, and C, and you can see which one it belongs to right here. This is the cost to play the card and put it into your building display. Right here is going to be the cost to activate the card. It might be a card or it might be money, as shown on that one. This is going to be the benefit that you get when you activate it while you're running your city. Right here are some in-game victory points that you'll get if you put this in your city. And if there's an icon right here, that's going to indicate that you have to flip this card over after you run it, or after you activate it while you're running your city. Additionally, you might see some cards with a banner like this up top. This is an ongoing ability that is activated as soon as you place it into your building display. And you'll see that on these city cards, as well as these Burrow cards, which are the bigger cards with the red back. Let's take a look at these ones a little closer. This is going to be the name of the Burrow card. This is the location, the cost, the benefit after you purchase it. Right here is the ongoing ability that is activated as soon as you place it in your building display, just like one of those city cards. And then you might also get an active effect, which is going to be activated when you run your city, and it would be down in the bottom right corner, just like this one, Paddington. You would lose a poverty when you ran your city if that was your active Burrow card. I'm just going to set up for a 2-player game, but setup is exactly the same for 3 or 4 players as well. The first thing you need to do is get your development board and place it where all players can reach. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to create your city deck. First, you need to separate the 3 different decks of cards, A, B, and C, based on the letter in the top middle, and then shuffle each deck individually. Once those are all shuffled up, you're going to take C and put it on the bottom, B goes in the middle, and A goes on top. Next, you take your Burrow cards and you find the 3 with the gray banner. These are the starting Burrows. Place those face up where everyone can see and shuffle the rest of the Burrow cards. And place those face down next to it to create a draw pile. Then you'll want to put your coins, poverty, and loan tokens near the board where everyone can reach. And each player will choose a color and then place their score tracker on the 0 space on the prestige board. And then each player starts with £5 from the bank and draws 6 cards from the city deck. You begin your turn by drawing 1 card. When you're told to draw a card in this game, that means you draw a card from the top of the city deck or one of the face-up cards that will be on the development board. Then you can choose from one of 4 actions. You can develop your city, you can buy land, you can run your city, or you can draw 3 cards. If you decided to develop your city, that just means that you're going to be playing cards from your hand to your building display. Now, to play a card to your building display, you have to first discard a card that is the same color to your development board. So let's say red wants to play Salters. First, they have to take this tan card and discard it to the development board. We're going to discard it to the first space available in the top row. If there are no spaces available in the top row, then you would discard to the bottom row. Now we have to check the top left of this card to make sure there's no additional cost associated to just play this card to our building display. And there's not, so we just put it right here in front of us. You just keep playing cards like this on this turn until you either have no more cards that you can play or none that you want to play. So we'll go ahead and play a blue card, this one, and we'll discard Waterworks since we have to play a match or discard a matching card in order to play a card. There's no additional cost to play this card, so we'll just put that in our building display. There's only one rule really to remember when you're placing cards in your building display, and it's that you could not put a card that you are playing right now onto a card that you played this round. So this would be an illegal move. But you can expand your city as far left to right as you would like. The thing that you have to think about when you're deciding how wide you would like your city to be is that each stack of cards is going to generate 1 poverty every time you run your city. And a stack of cards is just going to be these cards once we start playing cards on top of them. One final thing that you might be doing on your develop your city action is playing one of these action cards. Now, if you look at these, they look a little bit different than the regular cards. It has nothing on it except for this banner, which tells you to draw 2 cards, then remove this card from the game. There are 4 of these in the game. They're all a little bit different, but you do not have to discard a card to play these. You would just play it, remove it from, do what it says, and then remove it from the game. Red picked up another card that they can actually play since they have 2 tans in their hand. So we'll discard that, and there's no additional cost. And we're done. The second action you might take on your turn after you've drawn a card is to buy land. That just means you buy one of these big face-up Burrow cards in the middle. You just decide which one you want, pay the cost associated to the bank, and then put it in your building display and take the benefits. We're going to go with Southwark and Bermondsey because it costs £5 and that's how much money we have. You put that face up in your building display like you would a city card or any of your other components. Remember that your building display is public knowledge, so don't be trying to hide your poverty or money from the other players. So now that we've purchased this card for £5, we can take these benefits listed right here. That means we can draw 4 cards from the top of the deck or the development board. We can get 1 prestige and get rid of 2 poverty. We're going to go ahead and take 1 card from the development board and 3 from the top of the city deck. Move green up 1 point. And since we have no poverty, that's all we can do this turn. The third action you might take, and possibly the meatiest action of this entire game, is to run your city. This is where you actually get the benefits from all of the cards that you've been playing into your city, your building display the entire game. I've added a couple cards to Red's building display just so we can take a look at what running a city would look like with a few more cards. So the first thing that we're going to do is just activate all of our city cards one by one in any order. So we can start at one side, we can start over here, we can do one in the middle, whatever we want to do. You'll want to plan this later on in your game because some cards you'll get money based on how many face-up tan cards you have. And if you've already turned all of them over, you're going to be losing out on some money. So you want to pay attention to the benefits that you're getting and which order you're activating everything in. Nothing is really going to disturb anything or gain us any money based on each other in this, so I'm just going to start over at the left. This one says that we have to discard a card in order to activate this card. Remember, this bottom left corner is the cost to activate it while you're running your city. We have 1 card in our hand, so we'll go ahead and discard that from the game in order to gain £2 for each North London borough that we own. We have 1, so there's £2. We would also be able to discard a poverty, but we don't have any yet. Now we take a look over the bottom right corner, and this says that we have to flip this card over once we've activated it. So we will only be able to activate this card once this game. Remember, these are in-game prestige points, so you don't get these now, you'll get them when we do final scoring. And we'll move on to this card. There's no additional cost, so we can simply take £4 from the bank and then flip this card over. This card says that we gain £2, gain 2 prestige, and get rid of 1 poverty. We don't have any poverty, so we won't be able to use that. And now we have to flip this card over. This one just says that we gain £5, and then flip this card over as well. Now, when you're flipping these over, they stay in the same stack. You can never combine stacks or anything like that. Once you've decided to expand your city by placing a card during your develop your city action, you can never make your city smaller than it is. Another thing that you'll want to remember is that you can only activate the top card of your city display. So if you had a bunch of awesome cards underneath this one, you could not lift it up and gain £4 here and get rid of 2 prestige here. You just get the benefit of the top card. You flip it over and you have to ignore the rest. So if you chose to build over cards to get the end-game prestige and not the active ability, that's a choice that you can make. The second to last thing that you need to do while you're running your city is to check your active ability or effect from your Burrow card. Ours says that we gain $2 and lose 1 poverty. Some of these are negative and some of them are positive, but you cannot ignore it. You have to take it when you're running your city, regardless. Now, there might be some situations where you may have purchased more than one burrow. It's later on in the game and you might have 8 burrows or whatever. So if you have bought a new burrow, you simply place it over the top of your old one and cover everything up. So we would not get this benefit for running our city, and we also would not get any negative effects either. That goes the same for any ongoing abilities that a burrow might have granted you. Once you buy a new one, those are covered up and you may not use them anymore. The last step that you need to take when you're running your city is to generate poverty. You get 1 poverty for each card you have left in your hand, and you get 1 poverty for each stack of cards in your city. So we would get 1, 2, 3, 4 for the cards in our city. And since we have 0 cards in our hand, we're only going to get 4 poverty this time. Now the last action that you might take is to draw 3 cards. You would draw your 1 card from either the city deck or the development board as normal. And then you would also draw 3 additional cards either from the top of the city deck or the development board as usual. And then that would be your turn. We're just about ready to play the game, but there's a few more things that I want to cover before you actually get into it. First, there's a hand limit in this game and it's 9. So at the end of your turn, you need to just double check your hand to make sure that you only have 9. Obviously, you can go over 9 throughout your turn. Just make sure you do some actions to get rid of those cards throughout your turn, or you will have to discard cards from the game. For example, green ended one of their turns with 10 cards in their hand. So they would have to get rid of one of these cards and discard it from the game before red could take their next turn. Second, you're going to come across some of these pauper cards. These cards don't do anything except for gum up your hand and generate poverty. You cannot play them to your building display and you cannot discard them to the development board. All you can do with them is discard them when you have a card that the cost is discarding a card to activate it, or you can discard them when you are discarding at the end of your turn to get back down to 9 cards. Another thing that is important to this game are loans. Everything costs money in London. I'm sure that's true now, as it was back after the Great Fire. But you're not generating a ton of money. So you may have to take loans throughout the game. All you have to do is, when you realize you don't have the money to do the action that you need to do, is take £10 from the bank along with a £10 loan token. Then on your next turn, or any following turns, at the beginning of your turn, you can pay £15 back to the bank and return your loan token. You want to do this if it's possible, because these are very expensive on your in-game prestige if you still have these loan tokens in your possession at the end of the game. And the final thing I want to mention before we get into actually playing the game is what to do when your development board is full and there's nowhere else for you to discard cards. So in a 2-player game, this would be considered full because we are only discarding to this tan line. In a 3-player game, you discard to here, and in a 4-player game, you discard to here. So if on your turn you're developing your city and you're discarding to the development board and you look and you see this mess, what you're going to have to do is discard the bottom row of cards from the game, move down the top row, and then you can start discarding on the top again. And I think that's everything that you need to know to play London. You just take turns drawing 1 card and then taking 1 action until at the end of somebody's turn there are no cards left in the city deck, and then everyone else takes 1 more turn and you move on to final scoring. To do final scoring, each player takes 1 poverty for each card they have left in their hand at the end of the game. Red doesn't have any, so they won't take any additional poverty, but green still has 9 cards left in their hand, so they're going to take 9 poverty from the supply. Then those cards are removed from the game. Next, each player counts up the in-game prestige from the cards in their city display. Remember, that's the points that were in the bottom right corner of the city cards that you were playing into your display, whether or not you activated them. Red has 1 card that is going to score additional points during this stage, so they will get 3 additional points. Green doesn't have any, so they will get 0 additional points. Next, if any loans remain in any player's possession, you pay back as many as you can, $15 for each $10 borrowed. And then for any money that's left over, after repaying your loans, you get 1 point for each £3. Red has 20 pounds, so they are going to get 6 points. Green doesn't have any pounds left, so they will get 0 points for that. Now, if there were still loan tokens remaining, you would lose 7 whole points. Thankfully, nobody had any loans remaining at this stage in the game, but like I said at the beginning, those are expensive on your in-game prestige. Next, players compare their poverty at this stage, and each player removes the lowest amount of poverty from their poverty. For example, red has 4 and green has 9. So each player is going to discard 4 poverty. And that brings you to your final amount of poverty for the game. You compare that number to the board to determine how many points you will lose. In this case, green would lose 5 points because they have 5 poverty remaining. And the person with the most prestige will win. It looks like it's red in this case, and that's pretty common in our household. Let me know if you guys have any questions on how to play London, or if there's any other games in my collection that you'd like me to explain how to play. Thanks, and I'll see you guys again soon.